They were warned, not once, not twice, but 6 separate times before the iceberg ever appeared. On April 14, 1912, the unsinkable RMS Titanic was racing through the North Atlantic at nearly full speed. Passengers were dining, music was playing, confidence was absolute. But in the wireless room, something far less glamorous was happening. Ice warnings were arriving. Coordinates, positions, exact locations of drifting ice fields directly in Titanic's path. And somehow, they were not treated as urgent. The question is not whether they received the warnings. The real question is, why didn't they slow down? And what happened to the final message sent just hours before impact? The warnings were not rumors. They were official wireless messages. That night, multiple ships reported heavy pack ice directly along Titanic's route. One of them was the SS Californian. At 7:30 p.m., Californian transmitted a detailed ice report. The coordinates placed the danger exactly where Titanic was heading. The message was received, it was written down. But there's no solid proof it was urgently delivered to the bridge. Speed stayed near 22 knots, no major course change, no significant slowdown. If you value research-driven historical investigations like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, because no one else can give you research-driven videos like ours. Because the next warning was even clearer, and this time, it was interrupted. Titanic's wireless operators didn't work for the captain. They worked for the Marconi Wireless Telegraph Company. Their priority? Passenger messages. That Sunday evening, wealthy travelers were sending personal telegrams to New York. Stock updates, business deals, social announcements. The system was overloaded. Ice warnings kept coming in. Some were acknowledged, some were delayed. Then around 10:55 p.m., SS Californian tried again. They reported they had stopped completely because of heavy ice. Their operator sent a direct warning. Titanic's exhausted wireless operator replied sharply, "Keep out, shut up, I am busy." Minutes later, Californian shut down their radio for the night. They were only about 10 to 20 miles away, close enough to change history. But now, the airwaves went silent. Even after multiple warnings, Titanic did not meaningfully reduce speed. Why? Because she was behind schedule. Arriving late in New York would damage the prestige of the White Star Line. And Captain Edward Smith was nearing retirement. This was meant to be his grand final command. Slowing down in clear weather didn't feel necessary. The sea was calm. The sky was clear. No crashing waves at the base of icebergs to make them visible. Officers believed they would spot any danger in time. But speed changes everything. At 22 knots, reaction time shrinks dramatically. And that night, confidence quietly replaced caution. No one imagined that within hours, they would have less than 40 seconds to respond. At 11:40 p.m., the lookout spotted it, a dark shape directly ahead. Iceberg, right ahead. The warning reached First Officer William Murdoch. He ordered hard starboard, engines reversed, but at 22 knots, physics was unforgiving. They had roughly 37 seconds. The ship began to turn. For a moment, it looked like they might miss it, but the iceberg scraped along the starboard side of RMS Titanic. Steel plates buckled, rivets popped, 6 watertight compartments were opened to the sea. The ship was designed to survive 4 flooded compartments, not 6. The fatal damage wasn't dramatic. There was no giant hole, just a series of narrow tiers below the waterline. And now, the very wireless room that ignored warnings became the ship's last hope. Moments after the collision, Captain Smith entered the wireless room. He gave a simple order: send the call for assistance. CQD. Then the newer distress signal, SOS, repeated again and again into the freezing darkness. Ships began replying. One of them was the RMS Carpathia, but Carpathia was over 50 miles away. At full speed, it would still take hours to arrive. And the closest ship, the SS Californian, only about 10 to 20 miles away. But their wireless operator had shut down for the night. They never heard the first distress calls. They saw rockets in the distance, but assumed they were signals of celebration. The missed warning had now become a missed rescue, and time was running out. Above deck, passengers were told there was no real danger. The band kept playing, lights stayed on, lifeboats were prepared quietly. Titanic was designed to stay afloat even with major damage. That belief delayed urgency. Some lifeboats were lowered half empty. Many passengers hesitated to leave the warmth of the ship. Water was already filling the forward compartments. Engineers below deck fought to keep power running. Every extra minute of electricity meant more distress signals sent. But water does not negotiate. The bow dipped lower, the angle increased. By 2 a.m., the truth was undeniable. The unsinkable RMS Titanic was dying, and the Iceberg had not been the only failure that night. When survivors reached New York, the questions began immediately. How could so many warnings be ignored? The United States Senate launched an inquiry within days. Britain followed with its own investigation. Wireless logs were examined line by line. Survivors testified under oath. Officers admitted ice warnings had been received, but communication between the wireless room and the bridge was inconsistent. The system depended too much on human judgment. And that judgment failed. The disaster forced new international maritime laws. Continuous 24-hour radio watch became mandatory. Lifeboat requirements were increased worldwide. Because one truth was now undeniable. The technology existed to prevent greater loss, but action did not match information. And the final unanswered question remained. Was this tragedy inevitable or preventable? Here's what makes this story unsettling. The last ice warning from the SS Californian came less than an hour before impact. They reported heavy ice and said they had stopped completely. That message was interrupted. It was never treated as an emergency. Minutes later, Californian's wireless went silent for the night. At 11:40 p.m., the Iceberg struck. At 12:15 a.m., distress rockets were fired into the sky. Californian's crew saw the rockets. But without radio contact, they misread the situation. No one moved immediately. No engines started. No rescue began. By the time the RMS Carpathia arrived, over 1,500 people were gone. So here's the chilling truth. The Iceberg didn't appear without warning. It was reported, documented, transmitted, and dismissed. History remembers the Iceberg, but the Iceberg was not the first signal of danger. 6 warnings, multiple ships, exact coordinates, all reaching the wireless room of RMS Titanic before 11:40 p.m. The technology worked, the radios functioned, the information was real. What failed was the response. Speed was maintained, confidence overruled caution, communication broke at the worst possible moment. And the closest ship slept through the distress calls. So imagine this. If Titanic had reduced speed even slightly, if one warning had been treated as urgent, if one radio had stayed on through the night, would over 1,500 lives have been saved? Or was the tragedy already sealed the moment they chose not to slow down?